Carolina This Week with Tim McGinnis.
Good morning and welcome to Carolina This Week. This week we're going to talk trash and taxes. First up is trash. Horry County's had a law in effect for about 3 years now that requires trash generated here ultimately end up in Horry County landfill. It's a controversial law, one that Joel Allen took a look at this past week.
Horry County Council passed its flow control ordinance in 2009 after the Solid Waste Authority claimed the county would lose millions of dollars from trash that was generated locally but dumped elsewhere. Today, supporters say the law generates revenue that helps pay for things like recycling programs, hazardous waste collection, even emergency phone service.
We fund the enhancement of 911 out of our tipping fee money. So all of those things would have to go back to be funded by taxpayers of Horry County.
Bessent says 2 bills in the General Assembly to kill flow control have many sponsors and could be close to passing. Private trash haulers have said flow control costs them money and gives the county an unfair monopoly. Though these days it's impossible to get haulers to talk publicly about flow control for fear of upsetting the Solid Waste Authority. But others, like the South Carolina Coalition of Mayors, headed by Myrtle Beach Mayor John Rhodes, are in favor of killing flow control. Their letter to the state Senate says entities purchasing waste services should have the right to choose with whom they want to do business, and paying monopoly prices stresses tight municipal budgets. The Solid Waste Authority doesn't deny that it does have a monopoly.
However, it's a monopoly of the people by the people. If they don't like what we do and they can change it.
Mike Bessent joins us now. Mike, this is something that you're obviously looking at real closely. A lot of people hear about this law and they say to themselves, this sounds like government getting in the way of private business. Why should this law not be overturned?
2 reasons, one of it being the public benefit of the program to the citizens of Horry County. The Solid Waste Authority pays for the fees that we get into the landfill, pays for about 10 or 12 different programs, some of about a little over $1.5 million a year to pay for those programs. And it's supported programs. And secondly is there is a liability with waste. That liability, if it's brought out of the county and there's hazardous waste that happens to be in, if it's carried to a landfill outside of the county, and even if there's not hazardous waste that comes from Horry County's landfill, and there was to happen to be a leak of hazardous waste in that landfill that was brought there from somewhere else, the citizens of Horry County could be held liable for it.
If that's the case, and I'm not saying it's not the case, but why shouldn't every county in South Carolina have a flow control law? Why are we the only ones with a flow control law?
The U.S. Supreme Court said that you could only have an ordinance that controlled the flow of waste if you had a public benefit, if there was a public benefit to doing that. And with all of our programs and paying for E911 and our recycling programs and our hurricane disaster program, all the other programs that we do, you know, there's a public benefit, and that's the reason to hold it in here, along with the liability of the waste.
If it were to be repealed, and if it no longer were in effect, how would I, as a taxpayer, how would I notice? Well,
you know, we looked at probably about construction and demolition waste, probably about half of that leaving shortly after it happened, and the revenue sources for the programs would go down, and as the waste continue to leave, the programs would have to continue to go down. Now the question is does the citizens of Horry County want to continue those programs, and if they do, they feel that they're important enough for us to do those programs, then they would have to pay for them through a tax millage, and it would be an increased tax millage. The other thing would be, as the waste stream was to go down, the rates at the landfill would go up. When I say rates, there's a cost per ton when you go across the scale. We do that, and that's how we fund all these programs. So if it goes up, then the people that's paying in the unincorporated area, there's a millage for the unincorporated collection system, the 24 recycling centers. Of course, they would have to go up because they pay a disposal fee at the landfill just like everybody else. Cities do too. So it's a efficiency cost. You know, the more you got, the more efficient you could be. The less you got, the less efficient. Less efficient means it's going to have to go up.
So tipping fees, and is that what they call those, tipping fees, when the trucks come over and?
Yeah, that's the typical term, tipping fees.
So these tipping fees would increase if the law were to go away?
Yes.
But the private hauler would be able to shop around and possibly go to a county with a lower tipping fee or to a private industry that they could find a better deal at.
Yeah, and Horry County's waste stream, give you an example, the published rate for a landfill right over in Marion County for construction demolition debris is around $20. That's what the published rate is for it. Our rate for C&D would be that or lower if we weren't paying for these programs. So that's where the key is. It's not that ours is higher, it's just that we take the money and put it towards the programs. And if the residents don't want the programs, we could lower this down and be more than competitive with the private industry, but we can't be competitive with the private industry if we do. Now, municipal garbage, which is the garbage side of it, municipal solid waste, you know, in counties around us that has private contractors in play that's taking it to somewhere else, is much higher. Georgetown's a county Georgetown County, which has a waste stream in it, was about $40 a ton, but it does its own, but it doesn't have much tonnage coming in. So that gives you an idea of what ours could go to as tonnage goes down. But you take places like Florence and Marion and Columbus County, North Carolina, Brunswick, they range from $55 to $35 a ton. So I don't see if they're charging those counties how ours could be cheaper, because they would have to load it into larger trucks, have a place to load it, a transfer station, and then transfer it out. Now, construction and demolition debris, they could haul out, but we try to look at things as a whole, not just one segment of the waste.
Would Solid Waste Authority, as it is, be able to continue to go on if this law were repealed? I mean, would I still be able to go and you take my household garbage to a station, one of the satellite stations you have, or would those disappear?
No, those will always be there. The question is, how much would they cost for you to operate them?
Okay.
Those are public. Those are owned by Horry County government. The Solid Waste Authority and Horry County government is two different organizations, and the county owns those, and they pay the Solid Waste Authority to manage it for them.
Next step, I suppose, is for lawmakers to have their say on it. And from what Joel said, it's not looking too great right now. What's your final plea? What do you want to say to these lawmakers?
What I'm saying to the lawmakers and the citizens of Horry County, really think about what's going on and what the long-term effects, not short-term. The short-term good to haul it out, but the long-term effects that it'll be on the citizens of Horry County, as well as, you know, all the programs that it will affect. And if the citizens don't want the programs, then they just need to let their representatives know they don't want them, and we'll cut them out. But we think it's a public benefit to be prepared for hurricane disaster and have good emergency 911 systems that we pay for and all that stuff. And if they don't have it, you know, you're gonna have to pay for it with taxpayers. And a good example is the E911. You know, it has to be there. It has to be funded. And if we didn't have the funds, it's definitely a tax.
All right. Mike Bessent, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Stay with us. We'll be right back with more Carolina This Week. We'll talk taxes.